everybody, this is Cheri at djsundry.blogspot.com, and I have a Christmas card to share with you today. Now, I am not a big, I don't like to rush through Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is actually one of my favorite holidays, and I think that we need to spend more time being thankful. But I also am a very practical person, and I have a huge Christmas card list. I probably need about 120 this year. So I decided to sit down today and start working on those. So I'm going to just, this is actually going to be a tutorial, and by the time I'm said and done, we will have done 20 that are like this one. So I used two stamp sets today. I used the Everlasting Life Holidays from Close to My Heart and the Tim Holtz Joyful Song. Let me just set those aside. The paper pack that I used, the main paper pack that I used, is this from Recollections. It's the Cool Water Collection. And I know what you're seeing here is not traditional. In fact, if you look in here, there's really not traditional Christmas colors at all. But I'm using this almost teal, deep teal colored green. And I think you'll see how well it worked. I'm also using Georgia Pacific, just plain white cardstock. And then I'm using the Paper Tray Ink white cardstock for the piece that I do my stamping on, and we'll get to that in a minute. I'm using several different inks here. I'm using Ice Spruce Distress Ink, Faded Jeans Distress Ink, and Broken China Distress Ink. I'm also using Versamark and Memento Tuxedo Black, so I'm just going to set those aside. I'm using my embossing powder, and I'm using clear embossing powder, and this is my little embossing tool, and I'll explain that when we get to it. And then I have several tools that I'm using. I'm using my Crocodile 1/2 inch, and my scissors, and my small Martha Stewart scoreboard. I have a couple stamp press, and of course my ATG. I've already cut my paper, so we will start with that and kind of work our way from the inside out. This is the card that I have chosen, and what I'm doing is it's 4.5 inches wide by 11 inches long, and so what I'm going to do is come over here and score it at 5.5. Doesn't look quite right. 5.5. I'm not on top of it here, so I'm not seeing it very well. There we go. And there is my score, and we'll just fold that in half and just crease it down so I can set the scoring aside. And then this is where we're going to pull out our corner chomper. Because it's got such a dark base, I need to have the inside to be lined with white, and so that's what the Georgia Pacific is for. Now I'm just corner rounding the bottom corners of this, and I have to say my corner chomper is not, it seems like it chews more than it corner, I don't know what the problem is. This is, I'm sure the camera, you can't really tell, but this one is the Paper Tray Ink that I'm doing my stamping on. It's quite a bit thicker than the Georgia Pacific, but I'm going to go ahead and corner around that first as well before we start doing it. I just found that it was easier when I was making these. I'm having trouble with that corner. There we go. I'll just set that one aside. So for the inside of the card, I'm not doing anything fancy. I want to have room to write a note if I decide to, or whatever I decide to do in there. And if I am off camera here, I apologize. But I'm just setting down my card base. And that is the very first steps completed. And now, I don't know about you, but I have seen some really neat dark skies that people have been using in their cards, and I really like that effect. So I went back last night to try to see what ink combinations that people use to get that effect, and unfortunately I didn't have all of the ink combinations. I looked at a couple different people and saw a couple of different combinations, and they weren't ones I had. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do it my way and play with it and find a color combination I liked. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to go over this, the top part of my paper with this little powder tool. Now the reason I do that is that picks up the static and any extra, basically the static. It makes it so it's not staticky, so that when I put my embossing powder down, it will not stick except for where there's ink. So I've got my Versamark, and I'm sure that went off camera. I've got my Versamark here, and I've just inked up my angel, and this is the angel from the Tim Holtz Joyful Song. Now you're not going to see a whole lot of this because it's kind of a process you don't see the beginning of. And I've just put that on an angle up on the top, and then we'll lift that up, and then we'll pull our clear embossing powder. Now the embossing powder that I use the most, my clear and my white, I keep in these containers just because it's easier for me, so that rather than trying to catch it on paper and then pouring it back in the jar, I just catch it right over the bin, and that works really well for me. The ones, I don't have a lot of storage space, and so I can't do that with all of my colors. Someday if I have a little more space, I will, but for now I'm not able to. So I know that you really can't see that very well, but that's okay, it's on there. And so now I'm going to pull out my heat embossing tool, and I'm just going to emboss that, and I'm going to speed it up here because it takes a few minutes. Okay, so when you see that I keep the embossing tool moving, if you don't keep it moving, what will happen is it will burn. I've actually, back a long time ago when I was first learning to do this, I actually burnt paper where you actually get a brown ring on your paper. And then you just want to be sure that it's completely melted. I think I'm going to go over it real quick for just a couple more seconds. This image has a lot of little different pieces on it, and I found when I was doing them that especially the feet and the tips of the wings and the hands and stuff, it was really easy to miss, so I just wanted to go over and catch those. So now I know you can't really see that, but that's okay. Now we're going to do some masking, and this is something that's pretty. I've seen a few places out there right now where people are just using post-it notes to do some masking. In my case, I'm going to do masking to make it look almost like a snowbank. I saw somebody else do that, and I thought, ooh, this is a neat idea. And I want to just kind of create, you can create a mask for anything. In my case, I'm using post-it notes. You can use other things if you would like. And as you see, I'm not putting the post-it notes on here straight. I'm kind of making them go up around the angel because I want as much white space as I can have. So I make sure that's adhered down really well, and now the fun and the magic happens. I'm starting, let me open these up. I'm starting with the ice spruce just because that is the light it's the lightest of the colors, I guess you could say. It's also the least blue of the colors, and it's the one that's going to make my area look like night. At least in my opinion, it makes it look like night. I have seen people use tumbled glass to do this. I've actually seen people use faded jeans, ice blue, and the evergreen bough, which was kind of neat. And I do have those colors, but I was not going for that green of a look. I wanted it to be more blue. But by the time I'm done putting it all together, I've discovered that it's more of a almost a teal color by the time we're done. And then I'm going to go in with some faded jean just to kind of add that blue color that I'm looking for. Again, blending it in. Just blending. I don't want to blend so much that I lose the ice spruce that I had. And then the brightest blue of this is actually the China blue, and this is where it almost makes it pick up that teal color, and I'm just kind of going around the edges there. I don't want a lot of that. And then I'm going to put all of those away except for the ice blue. And this tip is one that I picked up over from the Simon Says Stamp YouTube page, and I thought it was kind of fun. Because I wouldn't have thought of this. You see here I've kind of got my snowy area. Now I'm going to make some very light snow almost give it just a shadow. I'm going to turn it upside down. I'm coming from the sticky note just barely off, and you don't even realize that much is happening yet, but you'll see in just a minute. Now, I've done quite a few of these cards, and one thing that I learned is you don't want to go too close to the edge or you'll go off the edge, and then you've got places where you don't want it to be. But this ice blue creates just the faintest shadow. You could do this with, I think, with a gray. Just the faintest shadow to make it look like snowdrifts blending up. And I just really like that effect. Again, I'm just barely going off my sticky note. It makes a great mask. So there we have that part. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go around all the edges, just lift it up and go around the edges. Now if you wanted to, and I actually did this on a few, you could take your Perfect Pearls or any of your shimmer sprays and spray it. And I did that and I liked them, but it lightened the colors enough that I really like the darker colors better, so I decided not to do that for the bulk of the cards. So now what I have is I'm going to take a dry, I have a dry baby wipe here, and I'm just going to go over that angel. And the reason I'm doing that is because that clear embossing powder now looks white, because what it really did is it resisted the distress ink, and so now we have the angel coming down over the snow. And so then we're going to stamp our image, and this is where the close to my heart image comes in. I mean our sentiment. And this is where I'm using the Memento Tuxedo Black. Now honestly, I thought about using the ice spruce, but I just was afraid it would just get too lost. So, and I really like the saying, and that's really the most important part. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose it in the image. It says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." Isaiah 9:6. Now it was a prophecy of the Messiah that was going to be born someday, which was Jesus. And so there we have that all stamped in, and it's so nice and crisp with that Memento Tuxedo Black. Now you'll notice that I have this little piece of foam. This is actually the foam that comes with the stamp itself, and Close to My Heart recommends that you use that to stamp. And I have to say, I stamped my first image without using it, and it was not nearly as clean as what my sentiment was when I actually used the foam. So it's a great piece of advice, one I highly recommend that you do. It really does make a difference in giving you that nice crisp sentiment, especially when one is as large as that one is. We're just about to finish up. This is a pretty simple card, no ribbon, no bling, no nothing extra, no glitter, just the embossing and then the techniques. So there we have our finished card. Thanks so much for stopping by today. Remember, take some time to enjoy the little things. Have a great day. Bye.